These are the best Line 6 Pod Go features that you need to know that will help you find hidden features and settings on your multi-effects unit. First, let's start with snapshots. Now, this is something you may be aware of, but it's definitely one of the best features on the Pod Go that lets you get the most out of each of the presets. So on your Line 6 Pod Go, you may notice this in the top corner of the screen, which is the snapshot icon. Now, each preset has got 4 snapshots that you can choose from, which are essentially 4 variations of the current preset that you have loaded in. Now, on a lot of multi-effects units that you may purchase in the marketplace, usually you need to duplicate presets. Kempers used to be a little bit frustrating for this. So you would literally have like your loaded in patch, and then you'd have to duplicate multiple variations of that preset and call it 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C, and so on. Whereas on the Line 6 Pod Go, you can just have one preset, for example, 3D here, but then have 4 versions of 3D. So 1.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Super easy. It means you don't have to jump between patches, reloading patches, so it maximizes the DSP processing unit on this pedal. Currently, this pedal right here is in Stompbox mode, which lets us turn off our individual effects blocks and pedals, which are assigned to our Footswitches. If we switch into our preset view mode and then press and hold down our preset bank buttons here, and then press them again, this will then switch us into snapshot mode. Another way is also pressing these in at the same time, like a quick press, which will unlock them in A, B, C, and D here. You can see when we choose a different snapshot, it will select it on the screen, but also change the icon, which is this little camera with the button number in on the top right of the display. We could then, for example, jump into snapshot 3 and go ahead and make changes to this preset, and it will save those variations. So it means we could go from a clean tone to maybe a slightly overdriven tone by pressing into snapshot 3. So let's go into our signal chain, for example, by pressing the view button over here. Then we can scroll all the way over to, let's say, the amp head. And on here, we can make some adjustments. So if we were to just move this would just basically adjust the master drive of the preset. But if we press and hold it, this will then turn white, which means we're now adjusting the drive on this loaded in snapshot. So on snapshot 3, we will have 7.1 drive. So if we go ahead and switch to our other snapshots that we've got loaded in, we'll go to 1, go and take a look. You can see it's at 4.2. We go to C, which is snapshot 3, and that will take it to 7.1. We can make these adjustments for every single effects block in the signal chain by just pressing and holding on the desired knob and then making a change to that tone. So if I give you a little demo of this here, right now we're on snapshot 1, and you can see we've got a super clean guitar tone, a little bit of crunch on there. Sounds great. If we jump into snapshot 3, you can see I've enabled certain effects blocks on here, and I have also changed certain parameters on the drive pedal and also the amp head. Now in snapshot 3, we've got a variation of this preset with loads of effects on, without having to load in a brand new preset or build out a preset and duplicate it. And then we can switch between these in the press of a button instantly with no delay. And it also means we can turn on and disable multiple effects blocks and changes and automate them. So we can just press into different presets without having to do a million different button presses and adjust things quickly on the fly. Super efficient for when you're playing along and jamming with friends, or obviously doing a performance with your band. Just lets you focus on playing. To then combine this with another useful setting, let's take a look at Footswitch Assign. Obviously, you can use your snapshot modes like we just explored, but if you press your Footswitch, you can obviously jump into the individual effects blocks that you can turn on and off, just like you would with a traditional guitar pedal board. Now, straight away, when you switch out some of the effects blocks on your Line 6, it may unassign these Footswitches, meaning that you have to reassign them, or you may want to change the order that they are currently used on the pedal. So for example, we've got this EQ pedal here, and Footswitch A is completely blank. There's no LED light on here. If we just go ahead and use the little roller knob, we can find where we want this effects block. It's selected on the screen. And then I just simply press and hold down the Footswitch, which I want to assign this to. And it will then give me a few options on the display where I can go ahead and basically say, yes, I want to assign this. And I can also say what type of assign. I want it to replace what's currently on this Footswitch or merge it. If we press merge, this will let us have multiple Footswitch assigns to a single Footswitch. So we could click Footswitch A in, and it might enable delay, it might enable the modulation and reverb, or it might disable those at the same time. So you just simply press and hold on Footswitch A, go ahead and say merge, or go ahead and say replace. I'm gonna go ahead and do merge and click OK. You can then see that this is correctly assigned on the home page. It will then say multiple is assigned. You can see right there, it says multiple. And if you want more Footswitches, you can change this in the master menu. So if you press the 2 page buttons in simultaneously, go over to global settings, scroll on over to switches and pedals. Here you can change the Stompbox mode to be 4 switches or 6 switches. This will either use these 4 Footswitches here in Stompbox mode, or if you enable it as 6, it will give you these additional 2 down here, depending on your personal preference of how you actually want to use this pedal. Next, let's take a look at how we can create our own custom presets on the Line 6 Pod Go. You may know how to do this, but there's some additional features that you may not be leveraging. If we press in knob 1, this will take us into our preset list. Now there's 2 different folders on the Line 6 Pod Go. You've got factory, and then you've also got user. Now inside the factory are all of the factory presets straight out of the box. So whenever you do a firmware update on this, you will get a whole load of new presets that will showcase the new amp models, effects box, and so on. It's super useful. I quite enjoy it. Most of the time I play a lot with the factory ones because it gives me a lot of creativity when just plugging in. But if we scroll over to the right, we can actually create our own user preset. So it will reset all of the preset memory banks completely, wipe them clear essentially, and give you a load of blank ones, which is great for making your own custom presets, but also organizing things for your own set list. So if you've got a load of songs that you need to perform, this just makes it way easier. Now you can also hook this up with the Line 6 Pod Go software, which is with your laptop, to build out the presets a little bit faster, reorganize them a little bit faster. If you prefer that workflow, it does have a little bit more of a modern approach compared to just using these 2 knobs. But me personally, this works great because you can have the guitar in hand, don't need to mess about with the laptop, and you can still achieve the same premise, a little bit more physical and hands-on. So inside of the user presets, of course, we can jump in and just select user preset 1, and it's completely blank. This then gives you the full freedom to jump into the effects chain and put the amplifier that you want in here, the pedals that you want, without any distractions from the pre-created ones. But what you may not be aware of when it comes to creating your own preset is how you can rename and also reorder the set list. So to keep this simple, let's scroll over to our factory presets. And let's take preset 1A, which right now is called US Deluxe Normal. If I use knob 1, I can just rotate this and move it around, reorganizing its order, which is great for if your song list changes in a performance. And if you also combine this with snapshots, it means you just need to move one individual preset. Now, let's say, for example, in a song, you would have 3 separate presets. Might be a bit frustrating leveraging this and moving it around because it take ages. Or instead, you could just be using snapshots and have one preset that needs relocated. You can then move this, let's say, to 1D, and then we can go ahead and just exit out. Now you can see that US Normal is our 1D preset, and our number 1 has been moved to whatever was 1D. It's flipped them around and reorganized it. So this has been super fast, didn't even need to save it, didn't even do anything, and it allows us to now have a better flow and organization of our presets. To take this even further, you can jump back into that menu by clicking in knob 1, and you can even rename this. So you can then click onto knob 5 and go through the process of renaming whatever you would like this to be within the actual preset. You also have control to rename the individual snapshots that are also within that variation of preset 2. Loads of flexibility. This is where it might be a little bit easier to use the Line 6 Pod Go laptop software because you've got a keyboard, so you can type things in just that bit faster. Now on the topic of using a laptop and an additional computer, you may find my Line 6 Pod Go Ultimate Guide series incredibly useful. This is an online course that takes you through every single setting on this multi-effects unit from beginner all the way through to advanced. And we have got thousands and thousands of students on my website taking my Ultimate Guide courses across a whole series of different products. And it's helped them maximize and get the most out of their purchase and do things that they didn't even realize was possible. Now, something for me that's made me go back to using the Line 6 Pod Go, seriously, I've been using this thing loads over the last couple of weeks, is the latest firmware update, which has introduced a whole bunch of new amplifier models and some little effects box tweaks. Now, if you aren't already aware of how to update your Line 6 Pod Go, we did do a video a few weeks ago right here that takes you through the entire process via the USB, plugging it into the software, updating it in a few simple steps, takes about 5-10 minutes, perfectly fine. But if you haven't done this, or it's miles in the future in this video, or it's been years since you've even updated your Line 6 Pod Go, there may be a whole load of new features that you haven't even got access to because you're still running like firmware 1.2 or something ridiculous on this pedal. Right here are some of the new amp models that recently came out on the Line 6 Pod Go, and it's proper modernized it, and it's taken some of the best sounds from like the Helixes and some of the more expensive devices, throwing them on here for you. So if you're a little like a more entry-level Line 6 product, it's beautiful. So this one right here is the Line 6 Clarity. It's just a nice little sparkly clean amp that sounds great on single coil Stratocaster. Bearing in mind, this is a cheap guitar on Amazon that was about £80, £100, and you would never know. It sounds super thick, and it's got a lot of detail within these. But along with these new amp models, we have new amplifier heads, as amplifier cabinets as well. And this is another one of the new 6 heads, Aristocrat. You can hear there's a lot of tonality difference between them all. Another nice little clean one. These work really well with the single coils on the Strat. I played a lot about with these on the Gibson with humbuckers, but a lot of them sound quite similar on there. Definitely worth updating your firmware. These latest amp models, they just feel a little bit more alive and real. A lot of like digital amplifiers feel a little bit dead because they don't really emulate the air moving in the room like a real amplifier does. But these, seriously, just have a lot more responsiveness to them. You can really dig in with the plectrum and play about with the dynamics of how that amplifier is sort of reacting and pushing the valves on the amp head. It's really cool. Next, let's talk about how we can set up an external Footswitch. This is going to give you a few extra functions that you can access on the go on the Line 6 Pod Go. Obviously, the Line 6 Pod Go does have a load of Footswitches that are accessible, but if you do want to run this in 6 Footswitch mode and not have to mess about triggering the presets up and down, you can use an external Footswitch to do this for you. So this could be preset up, preset down, and so on. And then this frees up all of these Footswitches to be assigned to controlling your effects chain way faster. So if you jump into our master menu by pressing both page left and right simultaneously, this will then allow us to access our global settings. On switches and pedals, scrolling around to access that, we can go to page 2 and we can set up our external Footswitches, which right here is available in these different options. Now, when it comes to setting up an external Footswitch, you're going to need a little special cable for this, which is a balanced TRS jack. This balanced TRS jack is effectively a guitar cable, but with 2 rings on it. You've got the top ring and the bottom ring. Now, these 2 rings are going to allow you to send 2 signals via 1 cable, a signal for each pedal. Whereas if you just use a standard guitar jack cable, only one of the Footswitches is going to work, which obviously is not ideal. So we're going to go ahead and plug this into the back of our Line 6 Pod Go. You can see right here, we've got this option called Expression Pedal 2, but also Footswitch 7 and 8. Now, if you were to use Expression Pedal 2, this would let you connect 2 expression pedals. So you could have like a wah, and then also you could have a volume pedal if you're super fancy like that and you need 2. Don't really think you need 2 because you can do press and hold commands on these to leverage it for multiple different settings. Not really needed. But you can then also use this same expansion port to plug in your little guitar jack cable with the 2 rings on to then add that extra Footswitch. We're then going to take the other end of this cable right here and then plug it into the middle of the FS6 that we've got here. You can also use like an FS7. Other Footswitches are available. We've got A and B. We're going to put it right in the middle port here because that's going to allow us to use that dual ring to get both of these Footswitches doing the business. We can then see right here that this Footswitch is already doing something. You can see it there. If we press this button, it switches to volume, or it switches to wah, which lets us change the functionality of that pedal, which is super cool. But we can also change what it's actually doing. So let's go ahead and map this Footswitch to an effects block so I can show you this in action. Inside of the master menu, you want to also make sure that you have got your pedals and switches selected to be expression pedal 2, and we're going to have it selected to be Footswitch 7 and 8, so that way it doesn't think it's an expression pedal. So it'll actually work as an on and off switch rather than a press and hold style like momentary command. So it's going to know that these are 2 separate Footswitches. So that now means if I go ahead and press learn on, let's say, this amplifier block and click Footswitch B, it will now map this to be Footswitch 7. So I can now turn this amp block on and off with Footswitch B perfectly fine, as you can see right there, allowing us to set up that external Footswitch. There's loads of different ways you can use this tool, and we explain all that inside of the ultimate guide that takes you through the exact step-by-step process to do a few different things with it. You can even take this one step further and use an external MIDI foot controller with the Line 6 Pod Go. This will allow you to use a larger external foot switch and do much more advanced commands with MIDI CC, and even program changes via MIDI CC. So you might press a button on another device, it changes all your presets on here, it switches out different guitar pedals. We could use the Ableton Live or something to automate that. Super advanced, but also really clever how you can set that up. We also cover that in detail inside of the Ultimate Guide series that takes you through all of the different settings on this multi-effects unit. But for now, if you are looking for more simple settings on the Line 6 Pod Go that you need to change, you should check out this video next, because if you like this, you'll like that.